In this lecture, everyone, I'm going to discuss about a function annotation. So many functions we have already created, a variety of things we have already executed. Now it's time to understand that how to write a standard function. So whenever you're going to write any kind of functions, which can be used by anyone, by me or maybe by anyone, any of your friend or maybe any of your colleague. So obviously they need some sort of annotation, they need some sort of a hint that for what purposes you are giving this variable, what is the return of the function, and many more things. And this is where a function annotations comes into a picture. So in this lecture I'm going to discuss about this function annotation, that how you have to maintain the standardization of the function so while creating it, so that others will be able to use it in a smoothest possible way. So let's get started, guys, and let's try to understand what is a function annotation. So guys, see over here. Let's suppose if I'm going to create a function called as test. Okay, so although I don't have to use a name called as test, so I can try to give a proper name to the function. So let's suppose here there is a function called as name I'm going to create, right? And I'm going to ask a user that you have to pass your name. Fine. Now here what I can do is I can try to return. So return what? So basically I can try to return a formatted string over here. So hello, and then maybe I can try to give a bracket, and here I can try to give name as a placeholder. Okay, fine. So this is one of the function which I'm trying to create. So a very basic function I'm trying to create over here. Now, so anyone who is going to call this function's name, so they are supposed to pass a data, right? They are supposed to pass a data inside this one. Now, so when you are going to hover your mouse as of now, so it is telling me that name and then any. So any data anyone can try to provide. Any means any kind of a data. But I have to notify a user, my user, that don't try to provide any kind of a data. Always try to provide a string kind of a data. So just a typing or just a type hint if I have to give to the user, because this is what we all try to perform. So while creating a standard function, so we always try to give a type hint to a user. So how I will be able to give a type hint? Now it's not hard and fast, it's not mandatory. You have to give a type hint, that's it. Okay, so here let's suppose if I'm going to give if I have to give a type hint, what I can do is, so I can try to write str. So you are supposed to provide a name in a form of what? In a form of string. Simple. Okay, so this is something called as type hint. It's not hard and fast. I'm not trying to decide, I'm not trying to declare the data type of this particular variable. I'm just trying to give a hint. Apart from this, so if you have to give a hint to a user that what is going to be the output, so means this function, what this function is going to return, this function is going to return at the end of the day. So how I'm going to give that kind of a hint that what this function is supposed to return in the beginning itself. So here I can try to write this arrow, right? This arrow, and then I can try to write a data type that, okay, fine. So this function is going to return what? This function is going to return string data type. Now execute it. So execute it. Now here, if I'm going to hover my mouse, so you will be able to find out that name string. So whenever someone is going to call this function, they will be able to understand that name which I'm supposed to pass, so it should be available in a string format. Okay, so it is going to make a work of the user very easy. And here, so anyone will be able to understand that if I'm going to pass name in a form of a string, so I'm going to get some sort of a string, this kind of a data type I'm going to receive out of this one. Very simple, right? Very simple over here. Now, so this is a function that we have. Now let me execute it. Let me pass my own name over here, Sudhan, Sudhanshu. So hello Sudhanshu, that's completely fine. Okay, now let's suppose if I'm going to call a print function. Okay, now let's try to hover your mouse. You will be able to find out the exact similar kind of a things. So variable name and then their data type. And again, you can look into it, you can try to understand about it in the easiest possible way. Apart from that, you will be able to get some sort of a default values as well. Plus, you will be able to see a return type about the function. Apart from this, you will be able to see some sort of a definition that what this function is going to perform. So one by one, so this is like a trend, or this is kind of a norms with each and every function. Doesn't matter which function you are going to utilize, you will be able to find out the similar kind of a approach with respect to every Pythonic function. This is how Python library has been created, or any contributor who try to create these libraries, so they try to do the same thing. Okay, and that's the reason, so this class is very very important, so that whenever you are going to write a standard code, you all are supposed to follow this one, so that users are not supposed to face any kind of a pain, users of these codes. Okay, now here so let's one by one, so I'll try to come to each and everything, right, every kind of a data type as well. So let's suppose there is this string which is given to us, right, which is given to us now, which is telling me that what this function is going to perform, right, what this function is going to perform. Now for this function, the function which I have created, there is no such string which I am able to see, right, there is no such string which I am able to see. But let's suppose if I have to make sure that this function also tells me what this function is doing, maybe in a form of string. So how I can do it? So it's again very simple. So let's suppose if I'm creating this function, so go inside the function and then try to create a doc string. It's called as doc string. So triple quotes, triple quotes. So triple quotes, doc string. Now in between, so you can write whatever you want about, or and whatever line, whatever number of line that you want, you can just try to type it. So this is one of the function which will take input as your name in a form of string string, and it is going to say hello your name. Simple. Okay, now execute it. So here now if I'm going to hold my mouse, you will be able to find out that here there is a string I'm able to get, right, there is a proper string which I'm able to receive it over here. So this is one of the function which will take input as your name in a form of string and is going to say hello to your name. So whatever I have written, so yes, if I'm going to hold my mouse, I'm able to get a string, I'm able to get a definition of this function, or it's particularly called as doc string, docstring, doc string. So if you have to create your own doc string, again you will be able to create it just by keeping a triple quotes, triple quotes. Now let's suppose if I have to like write multiple, so will I be able to write it down? Okay, so let's go and check here, right? So as you can see that if I'm going to give a multiple triple quotes, it is not going to consider these multiple triple quotes. It is just going to consider which one? It is going to consider the very first one. Now rest of the triple quotes, it is not going to complain, but it will try to treat all of these things as a string. So you can try to use it. Simple. Even you can store this one in a form of a string and then you can try to use it. There is no issue with it, right? But if I'm not going to hold it inside the like a variable, and if I'm not going to call it, again it will behave like a doc string. Very simple. Now let me remove this part. This is the permutation combination of this code. Okay, so this is something that we are able to understand now here. So maybe sometime, so what will happen is like I'm going to create maybe a function called as, let's suppose, def add. Okay, I'm going to create this function. Now I'm going to pass maybe a variable x over here, right? Variable x, I'm going to define that x should be an integer, and then y, so y should be an integer. Now it is going to give you a final outcome as an integer. This is what I'm going to define. Simple. Okay, this is what I'm going to define, that it is going to return you the integer. Now return x plus y. Return what? Return x plus y. Okay, so all of these things are completely fine, and I'm going to call add. And here, so maybe I can try to pass 4 comma 5. I will be able to get my result. Now if I'm going to hold my mouse, it is going to tell me the definition of the function. Okay, so I have to pass x integer, y integer, and then it is going to return the final value as a integer. So I'm able to give a type hint for this particular function. Now so let's suppose there is a situation so where I have to give some default values of y as well, some default values of y, or maybe an x. I have to mention some default value of y and x. How I will be able to mention that particular part? So again, that is pretty much easy and that is pretty much possible. I believe I have given you some like examples as well. So here in a past, so here what I can do is maybe I can try to define y is equals to 34. Okay, y is equals to 34. Execute. Now if I'm going to call this function add, so here x is equals to 4, y is equals to 5, it is going to consider. X is equals to 4, y is equals to 5, it is going to consider. But let's suppose if I'm not going to give a value of a y, right? If I'm not going to give a value of the y, what will happen? So it will automatically try to consider value of y is equals to 34. So here I'm just trying to give some sort of a default values. So it will be able to use a default value if you're not going to override it. If you're going to override, if you're going to provide a new values, in that case, yes, it is going to consider the new value, not the default one. So again, in this way, you can try to create it. Now, let's suppose there is a function I'm going to create, right? So there is a function called as a process underscore item I'm going to create, for example. And here, so item is something which I'm supposed to pass. Item is nothing, or item is like, item means what I wanted to say is that a collection I would like to provide, maybe a list, maybe a tuple. So here, completely fine. I can try to create a function, and then maybe I can try to return item, item. So I'm just asking a user that try to provide the item. Item means a collection, but how user will get to know? How user will get to know that they have to give a list inside this particular one? How user will get to know? How user will be able to understand that what is the meaning of item? Right? They can provide maybe a string, maybe a tuples. They can try to provide even a floating point number, complex number, maybe a boolean variable over here. So user of this function will not be able to understand that what is a meaning of an item. So what kind of a data I'm supposed to provide on behalf of this item, right? User will not be able to understand. So what I want my user to pass over here is I want my user to pass a list. Okay, fine. So let me write it down. So here colon list list. Now when I'm going to write this list list, you will be able to find out that it is not supporting, list is not defined, or pylons, right? List is not defined. So instead of doing that, so it is asking me that you can write any, so that is completely fine, but list is not defined. But I have to tell my user, right? I have to tell my user that try to use a list, and list is not defined. So what I can do, so there is a module inside a Python called as typing. So for from typing, from typing, import what? So import basically list. So again, there is a model called as typing model. So here you will be able to find out a list, tuple, dictionary, every kind of a data type in a easiest possible way. Simple, right? So just try to call from typing. It has been used just for typing hint. This module is been created just for a typing hint. That's it. It's of no use other than this one. So here I'm just trying to create a typing hint. Okay, so list, and now my user will be able to understand. So if I'm going to call this function, my user will be able to understand that I'm supposed to provide the data, but a data type should be a list, right? Data type should be a list. Simple. Now let's suppose if I would like to make my user understand that you have to provide a list, but list with only an integer. You have to provide a list, but list with only a integer, nothing more, nothing apart from the integer you are supposed to provide in the list. What I can do is I can even try to write int over here, type hint, and now let's try to see. Just hover your mouse and my user will get to know that okay, fine, so list with the integer I'm supposed to provide. Very simple, right? Very simple once again. Now let's suppose I'm going to print, right? I'm going to print this item. So here instead of doing a return, so maybe I'm going to print this entire item. So I know that print always try to return a none. Execute, right? Print always try to return the none, right? So here automatically it is trying to take none. So I can specifically even try to mention over here that what is a return type I'm going to get. So I'm going to get basically a none type return type out of this one. So here anyone who is going to check out this function, they will be able to understand that I am supposed to provide a list with an integer, right? And then I'm supposed to provide a none. Simple. Okay, fine. So this is again another way of doing the same thing, guys. Now let's suppose someone is trying to create a function, right? Someone is trying to create a function and which is going to take so def and maybe show my info function kind of things. Okay, so my underscore info function someone is trying to create. Now here, so someone has to give a data in a key and value pair. So technically someone has to pass a data in a form of dictionary format. Okay, someone has to pass a data in a dictionary format. Now here, so I can just try to write that okay, fine, so give my underscore info. My info means just try to pass maybe my name, email ID, phone number, all those things, my info, and then this one, and then return what? My info. Now, how a user will be able to understand that I'm looking for a data for this particular function, I'm looking for a data into a dictionary format, right? No one will be able to understand. So if someone is going to call so my function, right? So person can provide anything because see my info any. So I don't know what kind of a data this function is going to accept. This function is going to accept. So keeping that in a mind, what we can do is we can try to define the dictionary that, okay, fine. So this is going to consider. So I have written this function, keeping this one in the mind that we are looking for a dictionary kind of a data. Okay, dictionary kind of a data, and again inside a dictionary, so as a key value pair, so a string, so str and string str kind of a data, this is something which I'm looking for. But you will be able to find out that it is giving me a compile time error. Dictionary is not defined and pylons simple. So how I will be able to define this dictionary? Same. So from typing, right, import dictionary, and your work will be done. So typing module, and inside this module there is a dictionary which is available, so you can try to import it and then you can try to use it. Now if you are going to execute, now someone is going to hover your mouse over here, they will be able to understand what it is going to take as an input and what is it going to take as a output. Simple, right? Simple over here. Similarly, so if so let's suppose, so let's suppose someone is going to create, someone is supposed to take a tuples. So again, tuples, it's possible. So my info, I'm going to consider the same function, right? So someone would like to pass a data as a tuples. So yes, tuple, tuple. So T capital, all small. So tuple, tuple, right? So here tuples I'm going to mention. So maybe I have to import what? I have to import a tuples over here. So people will be able to understand automatically that what I'm looking for, what kind of a data I'm supposed to pass. And then maybe I can try to give a type hint that what it is going to return. So maybe I can write a tuples with maybe a integer, and integer it is going to return. So this is the type hint which I'm trying to give. That's it, nothing more than that. I'm just saying that it is going to consider, so means input wise it is going to take a tuples, and then output wise this is something which it is supposed to return. Simple. Okay, fine. So hope all of you are able to understand, guys, that what is the meaning of this type hint that I'm trying to give, and this is something called as annotations, right? So I'm just trying to annotate my function. So even we are able to understand that what is the meaning of a doc string. So whenever you are going to create a function going forward, just make sure that try to give a proper type hint, part number one, plus you have to give a doc string, means what function is going to take as an input, what function will return as an output, what this function is going to do, everything you have to mention step by step, step by step. Then only you can say that you are able to create a standard function. Okay, you are able to create a standard function, only then you will be able to say it. So likewise, guys, so there is something called as callable, there is something called as optional, there is something called as, you know, union. So there are so many things you will be able to find out inside this typing module, right? So depends upon your need, depends upon your requirement, you can keep on using all of these modules one by one, which is going to help you out in your coding, to maintain your coding standard, because this is how coding standard has been maintained, and this is how we all read a code even from a official repository. Okay, so this is also going to help you out, not just to write a code in a standard format, but to even understand a code which has been written by someone else in an official repository of a Python. So with that, guys, thank you so much everyone, and see you again in my next lecture, obviously. Thank you.